Amara Johnson sat in her corner office on the 47th floor, staring at the quarterly report spread across her mahogany desk. The numbers didn't lie. Store 247 in Denver was bleeding money, and customer complaints were piling up faster than snow in a Colorado winter. As the CEO of Tech World Industries, a company worth over $3 billion, she had seen struggling locations before. But this one was different. The complaints weren't just about slow service or high prices. They were about something much worse. "The staff treats us like we don't belong here," one customer had written. "I felt unwelcome from the moment I walked in." Another review mentioned rude behavior from management, and several former employees had left scathing comments about the work environment online. The pattern was clear, and it made Amara's stomach turn. She had built her empire from nothing. 20 years ago, she was a college dropout working 2 jobs just to pay rent. Now, at 34, she controlled a technology retail chain with over 400 stores across the country. But success hadn't made her forget where she came from. The complaints about Store 247 hit close to home because she recognized the signs of something she had experienced herself many times before. Her assistant, Maya, knocked on the door and entered with a fresh cup of coffee. "The regional manager is on line 3, she said, setting the cup down carefully. "He wants to discuss the Denver situation." Amara shook her head. "Tell him I'll call back. I need to think about this differently." Maya raised an eyebrow but didn't question her boss. She had worked for Amara for 5 years and knew that look. It meant Amara was cooking up something unconventional. After Maya left, Amara stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city stretched out below her, tiny cars moving like ants through the streets. From up here, it was easy to lose touch with reality. Easy to forget that real people with real problems worked in those stores down there. That's when the idea hit her. What if she went to see for herself? Not as the CEO in her designer suits and luxury car, but as a regular person. Someone who could observe what really happened when the cameras weren't rolling and the corporate visits weren't scheduled. The more she thought about it, the more it made sense. Her grandfather had done something similar back in the 1960s when he owned a small chain of diners. He would dress as a customer and sit in his restaurants, watching how his staff treated people. "You can't fix what you can't see," he used to tell her. And people act different when they think the boss is watching. That afternoon, Amara made a decision that would have given her board of directors heart attacks. She called Maya into her office and closed the door. "I need you to do something for me, and it has to stay between us," Amara said, her voice serious. "I'm going to Denver tomorrow, but not the way you think." Maya sat down slowly, recognizing the tone that meant her boss was about to do something bold and probably risky. "I want you to call the temp agency we use and arrange for them to place a new worker at Store 247. Someone named Amy Jackson. That's going to be me." Maya's eyes widened. "You want to work undercover? In your own store?" "Exactly. I need to see what's really happening there. The reports, the complaints, the reviews. They're telling us something important. But I can't fix a problem I don't fully understand." "But what about your meetings? The board presentation next week, the investor calls?" Amara had already thought this through. "Move everything to the following week. Tell them I'm dealing with a family emergency and need a few days. It's not entirely untrue. This company is my family." Maya looked worried but nodded. She had seen Amara make bold moves before and they usually paid off. Still, this felt different. More personal. "How long are you planning to do this?" "A week, maybe less. Just long enough to get a real picture of what's going on." That evening, Amara went shopping for the first time in years without her personal stylist. She drove to a regular department store and bought simple clothes: jeans, plain t-shirts, sneakers, and a basic jacket. Standing in the dressing room mirror, she barely recognized herself. Without her usual professional attire and styled hair, she looked like any other woman in her 30s. She practiced her cover story. Amy Jackson recently moved to Denver looking for temporary work while she figured out her next step. It was simple enough to be believable and vague enough to avoid too many questions. The next morning, Amara, now Amy, drove her oldest car, a Honda she kept for sentimental reasons, to Store 247. The building looked smaller than she remembered from her last official visit 2 years ago. The parking lot had cracks and some of the exterior lighting was broken. Not a great first impression for customers. Inside, the store was busy but not chaotic. Customers moved through the aisles while employees restocked shelves and answered questions. At first glance, everything seemed normal, but Amara had learned to look deeper. She approached the customer service desk, where a tired-looking woman in her 50s was dealing with a return. The name tag read Beverly. Behind her stood a younger woman with short blonde hair and a manager's badge that said Jennifer. "Excuse me," Amara said in her practiced voice, slightly higher than her usual tone. "I'm Amy Jackson. I'm supposed to start work today through the temp agency." Jennifer looked her up and down with an expression that immediately put Amara on alert. It wasn't the welcoming look she would have expected for a new team member. "Right, the temp. I guess you'll do," Jennifer said with a shrug. "Beverly, show her where to put her stuff and get her started on the inventory and electronics." Beverly smiled apologetically at Amara. "Don't mind her. She's always grumpy on Mondays. Come on, I'll show you around." As Beverly led her to the back room, Amara made her first mental note. The manager's attitude toward new employees needed work. But that was just the beginning. The employee break room was small and outdated, with a refrigerator that sounded like it was dying and fluorescent lights that flickered. Beverly handed her a name tag and a vest. "You've done retail before?" Beverly asked, seeming genuinely interested in making her feel welcome. "A little bit, but it's been a while," Amara replied honestly. It had been over 15 years since she worked retail, but she remembered the basics. "Well, don't worry. Most of us are pretty friendly. Just stay out of Jennifer's way when she's in one of her moods, and you'll be fine." That comment sent up a red flag. In a well-run store, employees shouldn't have to worry about avoiding their manager. Beverly showed her to the electronics section, where she would be working with a young man named Carlos, who looked like he was barely out of high school. He was patient and helpful, explaining the inventory system and showing her how to use the scanning equipment. "It's pretty straightforward," Carlos said. "Just scan each item and make sure the counts match what's in the computer. If something's off, write it down and we'll figure it out later." Amara spent the morning learning the routine, observing how employees interacted with each other and with customers. She noticed that most of the staff were friendly and hardworking, but there was an underlying tension she couldn't quite put her finger on. During her lunch break, she sat in the small employee area and listened to conversations around her. That's when she started to piece together the real picture of Store 247. "Did you see how Jennifer talked to Kevin this morning?" one employee whispered to another. "Over something that wasn't even his fault." "She's been worse lately," the other replied. "I heard corporate might be sniffing around and she's taking it out on everyone." Amara kept her expression neutral while her mind raced. If employees were afraid to speak up about management problems, how deep did the issues go? And more importantly, how many good people had already left because of it? As she prepared to return to work, she realized that her instinct had been right. There was definitely more going on at Store 247 than the reports had revealed. The question now was whether she was prepared for what she might discover in the days ahead. Tuesday morning came too quickly for Amara. She had spent half the night thinking about what she had observed on her first day. The employees seemed good at their jobs, but there was definitely something wrong with the atmosphere. People walked on eggshells, especially around Jennifer, the store manager. Amara arrived at work 15 minutes early, wanting to observe the morning routine. She parked her Honda next to a beat-up pickup truck and a small sedan that had seen better days. These were the cars of people who worked hard for their money, people who couldn't afford to lose their jobs over petty conflicts. Inside, the store was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the beeping of computers starting up. Beverly was already there, counting the cash registers with another employee named Tony, a man in his 40s who moved with the careful precision of someone who had been doing this job for years. "Morning, Amy," Beverly called out cheerfully. "Ready for day 2? Before Amara could answer, Jennifer's voice cut through the quiet morning air like a knife. "Kevin, get over here right now." Amara turned to see a young black man, maybe 22 years old, walking quickly toward the customer service desk where Jennifer stood with her arms crossed. Kevin looked nervous, and Amara could see why. Jennifer's face was red with anger, and she was holding a piece of paper like it was evidence of a serious crime. "You want to explain this to me?" Jennifer waved the paper in Kevin's face. "Because I'm looking at yesterday's electronics count and we're missing 3 tablets. 3 expensive tablets that were here when I left Monday night." Kevin's voice was calm, but Amara could hear the stress underneath. "I did the count. Exactly like you showed me. I double-checked everything. Maybe there's a mistake in the system." "A mistake in the system?" Jennifer's voice got louder. "Or maybe you made a mistake because you weren't paying attention. Again." Amara felt her stomach tighten. She had read enough employee complaint files to recognize what was happening. This wasn't coaching or constructive feedback. This was public humiliation. "I was careful," Kevin said, his voice getting quieter. "I can show you exactly how I did it." "Don't tell me how you did it. I know how you people operate. You think you can just slide by without really trying, but that doesn't work. Here." The words hit the air like a slap. "You people." Amara felt her hands clench into fists. She had heard those words before, in different contexts, and they never meant anything good. Beverly and Tony had stopped what they were doing. Other employees in the store were pretending to work while obviously listening. Everyone was uncomfortable, but no one was saying anything. Kevin's jaw tightened. "What do you mean, you people?" "You know exactly what I mean," Jennifer shot back. "People who think they deserve special treatment. People who think the rules don't apply to them." Amara couldn't stay quiet any longer. As Amy Jackson, temporary employee, she probably should have minded her own business. But as a human being, she couldn't watch this happen. "Excuse me," she said, walking toward the customer service desk. "Maybe there's a better way to handle this?" Jennifer turned on her like a wild animal. "And who asked you? You've been here exactly 1 day. Stay in your lane. I just think if there's a counting problem, we could work together to figure out what happened," Amara said, keeping her voice level. "Getting angry won't find the missing tablets." "Getting angry?" Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You haven't seen me angry yet. And I don't need advice from some temporary worker who doesn't even know how this place operates." Kevin looked grateful for the support, but also worried. "It's okay, Amy. I can handle this." But Jennifer wasn't done. She turned back to Kevin with renewed fury. "See? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't even handle your own problems without getting other people to fight your battles for you." "That's not fair," Amara said before she could stop herself. "He wasn't asking for help. I offered because no one deserves to be treated like this." The store had gone completely silent now. Even customers were starting to notice the commotion. Jennifer's face was getting redder by the minute. Treated like what? Like an employee who made a mistake? Like someone who needs to be held accountable? "Like someone who's guilty before you even know what happened," Amara replied. "Like someone whose character you're attacking instead of just solving the problem." Jennifer took a step closer to Amara, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You need to learn when to keep your mouth shut. This is my store, and I run it how I see fit. If you don't like it, there's the door." "Your store?" The words came out before Amara could think about them. "I thought this was Tech World Industries' store." Something flashed in Jennifer's eyes, surprise maybe, or suspicion. "Smart mouth, huh? Think you know better than everyone else?" "I just think everyone deserves basic respect at work." "Respect is earned," Jennifer snapped. "And some people never earn it no matter how many chances they get." She looked pointedly at Kevin when she said it, making her meaning crystal clear. Amara felt her professional composure slipping away. This woman was everything that was wrong with bad management, the kind of person who used power to hurt others, instead of help them succeed. "Maybe the problem isn't with Kevin," Amara said quietly. "Maybe the problem is with how you're handling this situation." The silence in the store was deafening. Jennifer's mouth fell open like she couldn't believe what she had heard. Then her expression changed to something ugly and dangerous. "Oh, I see what this is," Jennifer said, her voice getting louder again. "The new girl thinks she's going to come in here and save the day. Thinks she's better than the rest of us. That's not what I think at all. No, Then what do you think? That you can just waltz in here and tell me how to do my job? That you can stick up for people who don't deserve it just to make yourself look good? Amara could feel every eye in the store watching them. This was escalating way beyond what she had intended, but she couldn't back down now. Not when she saw the look of hope in Kevin's eyes and the fear in the faces of the other employees. I think people should be treated fairly, she said simply. That's all. Jennifer laughed again, that harsh sound that had no warmth in it. Fairly? You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's fair. Fair is when people know their place and stay in it. Fair is when temporary workers don't come in here acting like they own the place. She turned to Kevin. And fair is when people like you stop expecting special treatment just because of who you are. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Amara realized that Jennifer had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. This wasn't just bad management anymore. This was discrimination, happening right in front of everyone. You can't talk to people like that, Amara said, her voice stronger now. It's not right, and it's not legal. Jennifer's face went from red to purple. Legal? Did you just threaten me? Did this temporary worker just threaten me with legal action? I didn't threaten anything. I just stated a fact. Here's a fact for you, Jennifer said, moving closer. You're fired. Pack up your stuff and get out of my store now. You can't fire me for standing up to discrimination. Watch me. That's when Jennifer completely lost control. Maybe it was the stress of being challenged, or maybe it was the fear that someone might actually report her behavior. Maybe it was just years of getting away with treating people badly, finally catching up with her. She grabbed the small potted plant that sat on the customer service desk. A sad little thing with wilted leaves that someone had probably brought in to brighten up the workspace. Without warning, she lifted it high above her head. You want to learn about respect? Jennifer screamed. Let me teach you. The pot came down hard, dirt and plant and ceramic pieces exploding everywhere. Most of it hit Amara square in the chest and face, covering her uniform and hair with black soil. Some scattered across the floor and a few chunks hit Kevin, who had instinctively stepped forward to help. The store erupted in gasps and shocked voices. A customer near the electronics section pulled out her phone and started recording. Tony rushed forward with paper towels, and Beverly stood frozen with her hand over her mouth. Amara stood there, dirt dripping from her hair onto her shoes, trying to process what had just happened. Jennifer was breathing hard, looking almost surprised by her own actions, but instead of apologizing, she doubled down. That's what happens when people don't know their place, she said, but her voice was shaking now. Both of you need to learn that there are consequences for disrespecting authority. Kevin was staring in disbelief. You just assaulted her in front of everyone. I defended myself against insubordination, Jennifer replied. But she was already backing away, perhaps realizing that throwing dirt at an employee might be hard to explain to corporate. Amara wiped soil from her eyes and looked around the store. Every employee was watching. Several customers were filming with their phones. The whole incident had been witnessed by at least 15 people. Are you okay? Kevin asked, reaching out to brush dirt from her shoulder. Amara nodded, though she was anything but okay. Not because of the dirt or the humiliation, but because she now understood exactly what kind of person Jennifer was. And more importantly, she understood what her employees had been dealing with every single day. I'm fine, she said quietly. But this isn't over. Jennifer must have heard the determination in her voice because she looked nervous for the first time since the confrontation began. Yes, it is, Jennifer said, trying to regain control. You're fired, and if you set foot in this store again, I'll call the police. Amara smiled, and something about that smile made Jennifer take another step back. We'll see about that, Amara said, dirt still falling from her hair as she walked toward the exit. She had gotten exactly what she came for, though not in the way she had expected. Now she knew the truth about Store 247, and she had the evidence to prove it. Amara sat in her Honda in the parking lot, picking dirt out of her hair and trying to decide what to do next. Her first instinct was to march back into that store, reveal who she really was, and fire Jennifer on the spot. But she had learned long ago that acting on pure emotion rarely led to the best outcomes. Instead, she pulled out her phone and called Maya. "How's the undercover mission going?" Maya asked cheerfully. "I need you to do something for me right away," Amara said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Call our legal team and have them research every law about workplace discrimination and assault in Colorado. Also, get me the contact information for every employee who's worked at Store 247 in the past 2 years." Maya's tone changed immediately. "What happened?" "I'll explain later. Just get me that information as fast as possible. And Maya, don't tell anyone where I am or what I'm doing, not yet." After hanging up, Amara sat in her car and watched the store through the windshield. Customers came and went like nothing had happened. From the outside, everything looked normal. But she knew that inside, employees were probably talking in whispers about what they had just witnessed. She needed to get back in there, not as Amy, the fired temp worker, but as someone who could learn more about what was really going on. She had a plan, but it was going to require some creativity. 20 minutes later, Amara walked back toward the store, but instead of going through the main entrance, she headed for the employee parking area behind the building. She knew most. Retail stores had a back door where employees took their breaks and received deliveries. Sure enough, she found Kevin sitting on a plastic crate behind the building, looking shaken. He was still brushing dirt off his uniform shirt. "Amy?" He looked surprised to see her. "I thought Jennifer fired you." "She did," Amara said, sitting down on another crate. "But I wanted to make sure you were okay before I left." Kevin shook his head. "I can't believe she did that to you. I mean, I've seen her lose her temper before, but throwing dirt at someone, that's assault." "Has she done things like this before?" Kevin looked around nervously, like he was worried someone might be listening. "Not exactly like this, but yeah, she's thrown things. Slammed doors. Last month she accidentally spilled coffee on Destiny's paperwork when Destiny asked for time off to take her kid to the doctor." Destiny. She used to work in customer service. Really good at her job always. Helped customers with a smile. But Jennifer made her life so miserable that she quit without notice. Just walked out one day during lunch and never came back. Amara felt a knot forming in her stomach. "How long has Jennifer been the manager here?" "About 3 years. Things weren't always this bad, but it's gotten worse over time, especially in the last year." "Why doesn't anyone report her?" Kevin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Report her to who? Corporate? She's friends with the regional manager. They went to college together or something. Plus, most of us can't afford to lose our jobs. Jennifer makes sure we know that." "What do you mean?" "She's always talking about how hard it is to find work these days. How lucky we are to have jobs here. She reminds us that she writes our performance reviews and controls our schedules. If you get on her bad side, suddenly you're working all the worst shifts and getting written up for things that never mattered before." This was worse than Amara had thought. Jennifer wasn't just a bad manager. She was using her position to create a culture of fear. "Kevin, can I ask you something? And I promise I'm not trying to cause trouble." "Sure. Do you think Jennifer treats everyone the same way?" Kevin was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, like he was choosing his words deliberately. "No, I don't think she does. She's tough on everyone, but with some people, it's different. Meaner, more personal. People like you. People like me and Destiny and Carlos. People who don't look like her." He paused. "Look, I don't want to make this about race, but I've been here 2 years, and I've watched how she treats different people. It's not just in my head." Amara felt anger building in her chest again, but she kept her voice calm. "Have you ever thought about looking for another job?" "Every day. But like I said, I can't afford to be unemployed. I've got student loans and rent, and my mom needs help with her medical bills. Jennifer knows that about all of us. She knows exactly how to keep us trapped here." The back door opened and Beverly stepped out, looking around nervously. "Kevin, Jennifer's looking for you. She seems calmer now, but..." Beverly noticed Amara and looked confused. "Amy, I thought you left." "I did." I just wanted to check on Kevin. Beverly's face softened. What you did in there was really brave. Stupid maybe, but brave. No one's ever stood up to Jennifer like that before. Has she always been like this? Beverly glanced back at the door, then sat down with them. No, she wasn't. When she first started, she was just strict, demanding, but fair. But power changed her, I think. The more control she got, the worse she became. What about the regional manager? Doesn't he see what's happening? Richard? He comes by maybe twice a year, and Jennifer always makes sure everything looks perfect when he visits. She's all smiles and teamwork when corporate people are around. Richard thinks she's great because our numbers aren't terrible and we don't have a lot of formal complaints. No formal complaints? Who's going to file a formal complaint? Kevin asked. Jennifer handles all the paperwork that goes to corporate. You think she's going to pass along anything that makes her look bad? Amara was starting to understand the full scope of the problem. Jennifer had created a perfect system for covering up her own misconduct. She controlled the information flow to corporate, intimidated employees into staying silent, and maintained just enough plausible deniability to avoid serious consequences. I should get back inside, Kevin said, standing up. I don't want to give her another reason to yell at me. Wait, Amara said. If someone could guarantee that Jennifer couldn't retaliate against you, would you be willing to tell the truth about what's been happening here? Kevin and Beverly exchanged glances. What do you mean? Beverly asked. I mean, if there was a way to report everything without Jennifer being able to cover it up or punish you for speaking out. That's not possible, Kevin said. Like I told you, she's protected. Nothing ever sticks to her. But what if it could? Beverly studied Amara's face. You're not really just a temp worker, are you? Amara had to make a decision. She could stick to her cover story, or she could trust these people with part of the truth. Let's just say I might have more influence than Jennifer thinks. Are you a corporate spy or something? Kevin asked, his eyes widening. Something like that. But I need to know everything if I'm going to help. Not just what happened today, but everything that's been going on here. Beverly looked around nervously. This could get us all fired. Or it could get you all the workplace you deserve, Amara replied. For the next hour, sitting behind the store on overturned crates and empty boxes, Kevin and Beverly told Amara stories. That made her sick to her stomach. They told her about Destiny, who quit after Jennifer made racist comments about her hair. About Carlos, who was constantly criticized for his accent, even though customers never had trouble understanding him. About the way Jennifer scheduled the minority employees for the worst shifts and gave them impossible sales targets. They told her about Tom, an older white employee who had tried to defend a coworker and found himself suddenly getting poor performance reviews after 2 years of excellent ones. About how Jennifer had a group of favorite employees who could do no wrong, while everyone else lived in fear of making the smallest mistake. She's smart about it, Beverly explained. She never says anything that would be obviously illegal if someone recorded it. But she finds ways to make life miserable for people she doesn't like. Like today with the missing tablets, Kevin added. I guarantee you those tablets aren't actually missing. She probably moved them herself just to have an excuse to yell at me in front of everyone. Why would she do that? Because she knows I've been thinking about filing a complaint. I've been asking questions about our employee rights, looking up stuff online. She wanted to remind everyone what happens when you don't stay in line. Amara asked more questions, taking mental notes of every detail. She learned about the employees who had quit, the customers who had stopped coming because of how they were treated, and the toxic atmosphere that Jennifer had created through 3 years of unchecked power. The worst part, Beverly said, is that we're all good at our jobs. We care about helping customers and making the store successful, but Jennifer makes it impossible to do our best work because we're all too scared or angry or frustrated to focus. As the sun started to set, Amara knew she had enough information, but she also knew that testimonies alone wouldn't be enough. She needed concrete evidence, documentation, proof that even Jennifer's connections couldn't explain away. I have to go, she said, standing up, but I want you both to know that what happened today was wrong and it's going to have consequences. For Jennifer or for us? Kevin asked quietly. For Jennifer. I promise you that. As Amara walked back to her car, she was already planning her next moves. She had the testimony of employees, but she needed more. She needed to see the financial records, the employee files, the customer complaints that never made it to corporate. She needed evidence that would be impossible to deny or cover up. Most importantly, she needed to make sure that when she finally revealed who she was, she had everything necessary to not just fire Jennifer, but to completely overhaul the system that had allowed this to happen in the first place. Jennifer had no idea what was coming for her. But Amara Johnson, CEO of Tech World Industries, was about to teach her a lesson about real consequences. The game was far from over. In fact, it was just getting started. Friday morning arrived with a crispness that made everything feel sharper, more focused. Amara had spent the past 2 days gathering evidence that would make even the best lawyers nervous. Maya had worked overtime pulling employee records, customer complaints, and financial data. What they found was damning. Amara stood in front of her bedroom mirror, putting on her favorite navy blue suit for the first time in a week. The fabric felt foreign after days in jeans and t-shirts. She fastened her grandmother's pearl earrings and pulled her hair back into the professional style she was known for. Looking at her reflection, she barely resembled Amy, the temporary worker who had been humiliated 3 days ago. Her phone buzzed with a text from her legal team leader. "Everything's ready. This is going to be interesting." That was an understatement. At exactly 9:30 a.m., a small convoy of cars pulled into the parking lot of Store 247. Amara stepped out of her black Tesla, followed by 3 other vehicles carrying her legal team, HR, Director and Regional Manager Richard Collins. She had specifically requested that Richard be present for this. He was about to get an education he would never forget. The employees inside the store noticed the unusual activity immediately. Through the large front windows, Amara could see people pointing and whispering. Beverly was at the customer service desk and did a double take when she saw the woman in the expensive suit walking toward the entrance. "Is that?" Beverly whispered to Tony, but she couldn't finish the sentence. It was impossible. But the woman looked exactly like Amy, just completely transformed. Jennifer was in the back office when the group entered. Richard Collins walked in first, looking confused and slightly annoyed about being pulled away from his other responsibilities for what he assumed was a routine corporate visit. "Good morning, everyone," Richard announced to the store. "We're here for an unscheduled inspection, nothing to worry about, just some routine checks." Behind him, Amara's legal team spread out quietly through the store. They looked like they meant business, carrying tablets and folders filled with documentation. The HR director, a woman named Patricia who had seen every kind of workplace drama imaginable, positioned herself near the customer service desk. Jennifer emerged from the back office, straightening her manager's vest and putting on her best professional smile. This was the Jennifer that Richard knew, polished, confident, in control. "Mr. Collins, what a pleasant surprise," Jennifer said, extending her hand for a firm handshake. "I wish you had given me more notice. I would have made sure everything was perfect for your visit." "Everything looks fine, Jennifer. This is just a spot check, nothing formal." Jennifer's eyes scanned the group of corporate visitors, trying to figure out who was who and why they needed so many people for a simple inspection. That's when her gaze landed on a woman in a navy suit standing near the electronics section, partially hidden behind one of the legal team members. There was something familiar about the woman's posture, the way she held her head. Jennifer squinted, trying to get a better look. "Jennifer," Richard said, "I'd like you to meet some people from corporate. This is Patricia from HR and our legal team, and—" He gestured toward Amara, who stepped forward into full view. "And this is Amara Johnson, our CEO." The words hit Jennifer like a physical blow. Her face went white, then red, then white again. Her mouth opened and closed without making any sound. The confident store manager from 30 seconds ago had completely disappeared. "Ms. Johnson," Richard continued, oblivious to Jennifer's reaction, "this is Jennifer Walsh, our store manager here at 247. Jennifer, Ms. Johnson wanted to visit some of our locations personally. Jennifer's hand trembled as she extended it for a handshake, but Amara didn't take it. "Hello, Jennifer," Amara said calmly. "We've actually met before. Earlier this week, in fact." Richard looked confused. "I don't understand. You've been here before?" "Oh, yes," Amara replied, never taking her eyes off Jennifer's increasingly pale face. "I was here Tuesday and Wednesday. I was working here, actually, as a temporary employee named Amy Jackson." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard's mouth fell open. Patricia pulled out her tablet and opened a video file. Around the store, employees had stopped pretending to work and were openly staring. "That's impossible," Richard said weakly. "You're the CEO. You can't have been working as a temp." "Patricia, would you mind showing Mr. Collins the security footage from Tuesday morning?" Patricia turned her tablet so Richard could see the screen. The video showed the customer service desk area, and there was Jennifer, clear as day, throwing a potted plant at a woman in a store uniform. The audio was crystal clear. "You want to learn about respect? Let me teach you." Richard watched in horror as dirt exploded across the temporary worker's face and clothes. He watched Jennifer's angry rant, heard every discriminatory word. When the video ended, he looked up at Amara with complete shock. "That's you. That woman in the video. That's you." "That's me," Amara confirmed. "And that's your store manager assaulting the CEO of the company." Jennifer finally found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "I didn't know. I had no idea who you were." "And that makes it better?" Amara asked. "You thought it was okay to assault someone as long as they weren't important enough?" "No, that's not what I meant." "What did you mean, Jennifer?" "Because I have 3 days' worth of notes about what goes on in this store. I have testimonies from employees about how you treat them. I have documentation of customers who stopped shopping here because of the hostile environment you've created." Patricia stepped forward with another tablet. "Ms. Walsh, we also have records showing that you've been filtering employee complaints before they reach corporate. Complaints that paint a very different picture of this store than the reports you've been sending to Mr. Collins." Richard looked like he might be sick. As the regional manager, he was responsible for everything that happened in his stores. The fact that this had been going on under his nose for years was going to be a career-ending disaster. "Jennifer," he said, his voice shaking, "please tell me this is all some kind of misunderstanding." But Jennifer had given up trying to explain. She was staring at Amara with a mixture of fear and recognition. "You planned this. You came here specifically to trap me." "I came here because customers were complaining about discrimination and hostile treatment. I came here because good employees were quitting and no one could figure out why. What I found was worse than I imagined." One of the legal team members approached with a folder. "Ms. Johnson, we've finished our preliminary review. We have documented evidence of workplace harassment, discrimination, assault, and falsification of corporate reports." Kevin appeared from the electronics section, his face a mixture of amazement and vindication. Beverly was right behind him, and Carlos emerged from the stockroom. Other employees gathered around, finally understanding what was happening. "The woman who stood up for us," Beverly said in wonder. "She's the CEO of the entire company." Jennifer looked around at all the faces staring at her. Employees she had intimidated and bullied, corporate executives who now knew the truth about her management style, and the woman she had humiliated without knowing she was sealing her own fate. "I want everyone to understand something," Amara said, her voice carrying across the entire store. "What happened here this week was unacceptable, not just because it happened to me, but because it shouldn't happen to anyone. Every person who works for this company deserves to be treated with dignity and respect." She turned to address the employees directly. "I know some of you were afraid to speak up because you thought no one would listen, or because you worried about losing your jobs. That fear ends today." Patricia stepped forward with a thick folder. "Ms. Walsh, you're being terminated immediately. For cause. These are the papers documenting the reasons for your dismissal, including assault, workplace harassment, discrimination, and falsification of company documents." Jennifer took the folder with shaking hands, but she didn't open it. She seemed to be in shock, unable to process that her world was collapsing around her. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings, Patricia continued. You have 10 minutes. This isn't fair, Jennifer said, but her voice lacked any conviction. You set me up. You tricked me. I gave you every opportunity to the right thing, Amara replied. When you saw an employee being treated unfairly, you chose to make it worse. When someone stood up against discrimination, you chose to escalate the situation. When you had a chance to act professionally, you chose to throw dirt at another human being. Richard finally spoke up, his voice hollow. Jennifer, I don't know what to say. I had no idea any of this was happening. That's part of the problem, Amara said. But we'll address that separately. 2 security guards appeared at the store entrance. They were polite but firm as they approached Jennifer. Ma'am, we need you to come with us to collect your things, one of them said. As Jennifer walked toward the back office between the security guards, she looked back at Amara one last time. I hope you're satisfied, she said bitterly. I'm not satisfied, Amara replied. I'm heartbroken that it took this long for someone to stop you. I'm angry that good people suffered because of your actions, but I am determined to make sure this never happens again. The store watched in stunned silence as Jennifer Walsh, who had ruled over them with fear and intimidation for 3 years, was escorted out of the building with a cardboard box of her personal belongings. It was over. But for the employees of Store 247, it was also just the beginning. 3 months later, Amara walked through the doors of Store 247 for what felt like the 100th time since that dramatic Friday morning. But this visit was different. She wasn't undercover, and she wasn't there to fire anyone. She was there to see something that made all the drama and difficulty worthwhile. The store looked completely different. New paint, updated lighting, and a warm atmosphere that felt welcoming from the moment you stepped inside. But the real change wasn't in the decorations, it was in the people. Good morning, Ms. Johnson, Kevin called out from behind the customer service desk, his smile genuine and relaxed. He looked like a completely different person than the nervous young man she had met 3 months ago. Ready for the big celebration? Today was the store's reopening party after the renovations, but more importantly, it was a celebration of what could happen when people were treated with respect and given the chance to succeed. I wouldn't miss it, Amara replied, looking around at the bustling activity. Employees were setting up displays and preparing for the event, but unlike her first day undercover, everyone looked happy to be there. Beverly approached with a clipboard and the kind of confidence that comes from being valued at work. The local news crew will be here at 2, and the mayor is supposed to arrive around 3 for the ribbon cutting. How are you feeling about the interview? Amara asked. Beverly had been promoted to store manager after Jennifer's departure, and today she would be speaking to reporters about the store's transformation. It was a big moment for someone who had spent years afraid to speak up about workplace problems. Nervous but excited, Beverly admitted. 6 months ago, I never would have imagined I'd be managing this place, let alone talking to reporters about it. The changes at Store 247 had been swift but carefully planned. Within a week of Jennifer's firing, Amara had brought in a team of workplace culture experts to assess the situation and develop a recovery plan. What they found was a group of talented, dedicated employees who had been held back by fear and poor management. The first step had been individual meetings with every employee. Amara wanted to hear their stories, understand their concerns, and, most importantly, find out what they needed to do their best work. The conversations were sometimes difficult but always honest. Kevin had told her about his dreams of going back to school for business management. Carlos revealed that he spoke 3 languages fluently and had ideas for serving the store's diverse customer base better. Tony, the quiet man who had worked there for years, turned out to have extensive experience with inventory systems that could save the company thousands of dollars. These people were never the problem, Amara had told her executive team during one of their planning meetings. The problem was that no one was listening to them or giving them opportunities to grow. The transformation hadn't just been about personnel changes. Amara had invested heavily in updating the store's technology, improving the break room facilities, and creating a comfortable environment for both employees and customers. But the biggest investment had been in the people themselves. Every employee received additional training, not just in customer service but in leadership skills, conflict resolution, and company policies. They established the anonymous feedback system that went directly to corporate, bypassing any potential filtering by local management. Most importantly, they created clear pathways for advancement and professional development. Ms. Johnson? Carlos approached with a group of customers who looked like they were having a great time shopping. These folks wanted to meet you. They've been customers here for years and wanted to thank you for the changes. An elderly woman stepped forward with a warm smile. I stopped coming here for almost a year because the atmosphere was so unpleasant. But now it's like a completely different place. The staff is helpful, friendly, and they actually seem to enjoy their jobs. That means everything to us, Amara replied. Our employees deserve to work in a place where they can succeed, and our customers deserve to shop somewhere that makes them feel welcome. The woman nodded enthusiastically. Well, you've certainly achieved that. My granddaughter loves coming here now because Kevin in electronics always takes time to explain the new gadgets to her. As the customers continued shopping, Amara reflected on how much had changed. The store's sales numbers told part of the story. They were up 30% from the previous year. Customer satisfaction scores had improved dramatically. But the real measure of success was in the faces of the people who worked there. Maya appeared at her side with an update. The regional managers from the other districts are here. They're very interested in learning about the changes you've implemented. This was another important part of the day. Word had spread throughout the company about the transformation at Store 247, and other locations wanted to understand how to create similar positive changes. Amara had decided to use this store as a model for company-wide reforms. Have them meet with Beverly first, Amara said. She can explain better than anyone what it's like to work in an environment where people are actually supported instead of intimidated. Richard Collins, the regional manager who had been so shocked by the security footage, approached with a humble expression. He had undergone his own transformation over the past 3 months, implementing new oversight procedures and management training programs across all his locations. Amara, I want to thank you again for opening my eyes to what was happening here. I've learned more about real leadership in the past 3 months than I did in the previous 5 years. How are the other stores responding to the new policies? Better than I expected. Turns out a lot of managers were struggling with similar issues but didn't know how to address them. The training programs you developed are helping everyone become more effective leaders. The afternoon flew by with interviews, demonstrations of the new systems, and celebrations with employees, customers, and community leaders. But the moment that meant the most to Amara came near the end of the day. She was standing near the electronics section when she overheard a conversation between 2 teenage customers. This place is so much better than it used to be, one of them said. Remember how weird and tense it felt before? Now everyone here actually seems to want to help you. Yeah. And did you see that article about the CEO who went undercover? That's so cool that she actually worked here to figure out what was wrong. Amara smiled to herself. The story had gotten a lot of media attention, and while some people focused on the drama of the confrontation, she was glad that the real message was getting through. Leadership meant being willing to understand problems from the ground up, not just managing from a distance. As the celebration wound down, Amara gathered the store team for a final group photo. Looking at the faces around her, Beverly beaming with pride in her new role, Kevin excited about starting college classes next month, Carlos preparing to lead a new customer service initiative, Tony training other employees on his inventory improvements. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction. But the story wasn't really over. It was just beginning. 6 months later, Jennifer Walsh was completing her court-mandated community service at a local nonprofit that helped people find employment. The assault charges had been resolved with a plea agreement that included anger management classes and sensitivity training. Amara had chosen not to pursue a civil lawsuit, deciding that real change was more important than personal revenge. Jennifer had struggled to find another management position, but she had eventually found work as a sales associate at a small electronics store. The humbling experience had forced her to confront her own behavior and attitudes. While she would never admit it publicly, she had learned valuable lessons about treating people with basic human dignity. Store 247 had become one of the company's top performers, featured in business magazines as an example of how proper management and employee empowerment could transform workplace culture. The model developed there was being implemented in stores across the country, creating better working conditions for thousands of employees. But perhaps the most important outcome was the message it sent throughout the company and beyond. Discrimination and abuse of power would not be tolerated, no matter who you were or how long you had been getting away with it. Every employee, from the newest temporary worker to the most senior manager, deserved to be treated with respect. Kevin graduated from business school 2 years later and was promoted to assistant manager at one of the company's flagship stores. Beverly became a regional trainer, helping other stores implement the cultural changes that had worked so well at Store 247. Carlos started the company's first multilingual customer service program, which became a model for other retailers. And Amara, she continued to make unannounced visits to stores throughout the company, though never again undercover. She had learned that the best way to understand your business was to stay connected to the people who made it work every day. The story of Store 247 became more than just a tale of one bad manager getting caught. It became proof that change was possible, that standing up for what's right could make a real difference, and that every person, regardless of their position or background, deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. Sometimes the most important battles are fought not in boardrooms or courthouses, but in the everyday interactions between people trying to do their jobs and live their lives. And sometimes justice comes not from punishment alone, but from the determination to build something better from the ashes of what was broken. The transformation of Store 247 showed that with the right leadership, honest communication, and a commitment to treating people fairly, any workplace could become a place where everyone had the opportunity to succeed. And that was a lesson worth more than any quarterly profit report.